Wonderful guest today, beginning with Chef Adalberto Diaz. He is an award-winning pastry chef, escaped Communist Cuba. He has his thoughts and his experience he's going to bring with us. And then novelist, essayist, writer, something's wrong with my mouth today already, Walter Kirn, author of Blood Will Out, Missions to America, many other books, and the author of Up in the Air that was adapted into the Oscar-nominated movie starring George Clooney and Anna Kendrick. You can follow Walter on X at Walter Kirn, K-I-R-N. And then Dr. SueLyn Hall, she's a board-certified urologist. Her book is How to Get Ahead. I'll let your imagination run wild with that, and I suspect you'll get over the target just by imagining what that book is about. Again, we're going to begin with Chef Al and talk a little bit about Cuba and what he imagines the future might be there right after this. Our laws as it pertains to substances are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say. We're going to begin with Chef Al. I'm going to spell his first name, Adalberto, Adalberto, because that's in a lot of his tags. So his X is, his website is adalbertodiaz.com. His Facebook is Chef Adalberto, and fillingsangemulsions.com. That is he is co-owner of Fillings and Emulsions in Salt Lake City. As I said, you can go to adalbertodiaz.com to find more. He's a James Beard semifinalist for Outstanding Pastry Chef in 2025. And he escaped Communist Cuba and has a story to tell us. Chef Al, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So first of all, where can we go to taste your pastries?
You have to come to Salt Lake City. I am right in the, very close to downtown Salt Lake City. We're 1391 South 300 West. But yeah, right here in Salt Lake City, Utah.
I don't think of Salt Lake as a primary destination for Cuban immigrants. How did you end up there?
And you are absolutely right. When I first came here, it was a desert for not only Cubans, but almost very little immigrants in here 25 years ago. Right now, there's a lot of Cubans in here. Actually, I think there's like more than 1,600 Cubans in here right now. And the reason why I got here was because the people that helped me escape from Cuba back in 2000 are actually from here. So I didn't have anywhere else to go.
It's a beautiful city. If anybody's ever been there, you can eat off the sidewalk. It's one of the rarest cities in the United States that is super clean like that. And so I've been to Cuba a few times when it has been opened for Americans. And I just want to start with this sort of insight, the sort of observations that I had. I mean, one, obviously wonderful people, great musicians, beautiful food, brilliant, lots of bright people who seem to me to be so brainwashed by the history of the country that they were so, as this is a famous phrase from Fiddler on the Roof, they were so happy they don't know how miserable they are. You know what I mean? And the line the BS, frankly, that they, for instance, the first time I was there, I'd have a keeper. I'd have somebody following along with me, and she was like, "Oh, the medical system here is so great." My grandmother, she was sick, and they could even get her Tylenol if she needed it. And I was like, "Oh my God, this is not good." But there is a general willingness to toe the line on behalf of the government, no matter how bad the government functions.
Well, let me tell you a couple of things about that. It is true that at least half of the population in Cuba have a very strong support of the government, right? So that comes from the indoctrination that you get from the moment you're born all the way through, all throughout your education, which is free. So basically, they teach you to adore the system, right? So, but when I was there, the 28 years that I lived in Cuba, and I got a great education, that education came with a price for them because they educated me so well that I was able to see the lies. Right? So there is a bunch of people in Cuba that do not believe that. 100% do not believe it. Now, there is another side of the Cuban population, or not just the Cuban population, I think the culture, our culture, we tend to laugh at our misery, mostly because that's the only way we can deal with it on a regular basis, because we don't see a way out, right? So we tend to laugh at our problems and say everything is okay. And yes, definitely medical system is free, but you can get attended, but you might not get the medicine, or you might have to have a surgery, and it will take you forever to get it. And then once you're in the hospital with surgery, you don't have any. I had surgery, tonsillectomy, with no anesthesia. It was a horrible experience.
Not only that, I heard stories that people had to bring their own bed sheets and things like, and pillows, everything. They had to bring food, everything. You got to bring your own stuff in. Yeah.
For my mom, we had to bring all the soap, towels, everything to take care of her. The doctors were there, and they were great doctors and wanted to help everybody, but the resources were non-existent. So you have to see it for what it is. And yes, there, like you said, there is some people in there that are not going to listen. But I will tell you, the new generations are not that way anymore.
That's what I was wondering about. And also, the world is so connected now, you can't help the world from bleeding in any longer, number one. And then number two, do you think the current economic distress is going to wake some of those folks up, that the government can't do, they just do a terrible job of managing the economy?
Well, listen, everybody in Cuba is 100% acutely aware of the responsibility of the government, even though the government always find a way to blame the outside sources for, the embargo and all these other things. But everybody in there, they know that it's the government creating these situations, right? Now, there's another side of the story that most people forget, is that we are an island. There is no escape. There is no borders to go to. There is no places to go and hide. If you are going to fight the government, the chances that you're going to get caught and you're going to get put in prison or killed or do whatever are very high. So there is a difference from, fighting a government when you have a way out or some way to hide or go somewhere else. Like, even Fidel Castro, when he fought the Cuban government, he went to Mexico and then he came back with resources and a militia, right? So the Cuban people do not have that. They are trapped in there. Yeah. And whatever happens in there, done by the government or by outside sources, like right now is happening with the lack of power or, fuel coming from Venezuela, etc., the people are the ones who pay for that.
Yeah. Do you have a prediction of how this is going to play out?
If I know the history of my country, and we've been here before, we went through the process of the collapse of the socialist bloc, right? And we had what was called the special period. I don't know if people remember the special period, but we had no gas, we had no water, we had no food, we had no salt in an island surrounded by an ocean. And at the end, nothing happened. And I hope that something really changes, but I think that the biggest thing is generations and generations of fear, by a regime that has been there for so long, that prevents people from doing anything more than a protest. And as soon as you give them something, right, then they go back home and continue with their lives like it's normal, because you don't see a way out.
How did you get out?
So I actually got a friend of mine to help me with some money to get a fake visa to go to Mexico. So I got to Mexico with a visa of work, and then I used that to get to the border and ask for asylum. I was actually in one of the processing facilities here in America for 21 days before I was allowed in the country. And that was in the year 2000. So that's basically what I had to do. I had to get fake papers. And it was, I mean, I had an illegal bakery back in Havana. It was, they were already looking for me back then. I used to I worked in hotels, so I had a bunch of friends from the United States, and for only 15 days before I actually got my fake visa and then flew out of the country to Mexico.
Wow, that's an interesting story. I'm guessing you grew up around the time of the whole Elias Gonzalez
I
thing,
actually
whatever
arrived,
that was.
I arrived to America.
Say it again,
I said I arrived to America the day Elian Gonzalez left.
What do you think of that whole affair?
It's sad that the American government sent him back because he was automatically used as a propaganda, banner. But at the same time, I mean, what are you going to do? It's a child and there's family there. But yeah, I mean, he will have had a better life here if not for, whatever happened 25 years later. He's still being, utilized.
I remember driving into Havana, and there's a square with a big monument on it to Elias Gonzalez. It's crazy. It's super
Cuba
crazy.
They're good at propaganda. They're very good at propaganda.
They're into it, yeah. And the thing that the first time I went there that struck me so vividly, it was a little better last time, but it was it was like this, like almost like Madrid or something, or Paris, sort of falling into the sea. That whole drive along the seaport was just empty with collapsing buildings. It just was sad.
It is the image of an apocalyptic nation, right? Like it's a beautiful architecture everywhere that is getting eaten by time, and the people in there has no resources to do anything about it. Their houses are collapsing. I remember my house, the walls will peel off like layers and layers because of the salt in the air being so close to the ocean, because I was in Havana, and there was nothing we couldn't do. We couldn't buy anything to fix them. When the special period was happening, we had water 3 times a week for 1 hour for those 3 days. We had power that came around 2 hours a day. And then we made sure that we kept our fridges closed so that we didn't lose whatever was in there. I don't want to equalize whatever they're dealing with right now with what I lived, but it is familiar to me. I know how horrible the experience they're living in right now. And I wish that will change.
Do you think that having Marco Rubio in there in the geopolitical helm will help? Do you think he can reach the Cuban people differently than somebody else?
I really do not know. Cubans are very well known for not taking orders from anybody. I think they have to find somebody from within that has that can reach out to them. We have 1902, right? We had 1959. We have all these other governments.
People don't know that. People don't know that there have been major revolutions. 3 major revolutions. What's the poet's name? That was the classic one.
Martí.
And you're very comfortable with, what's his name?
Jose Martí.
Yeah, Martí. And that's your national anthem, I think, is written by him and stuff too, right?
No, but we have a very big story, previous history of the island being taken by the French, by the Spanish, back by the Americans, then back by the Spanish, then the Americans we got the Maine when they destroyed the Maine on the base so that they could jump into the American-Spanish War. We remember all of this, and there is a PTSD kind of like feeling in Cuba about having other people come in and tell us what to do. So I don't think that's going to be a good idea.
But every time, my point was that every time the Cubans have had some sort of figure that emerges that they gather behind and cast out, cast out these colonizers. And my gosh, this would be the ideal time for someone like that with some sort of modern, you know what I mean? Some sort of modern view of things rather than the collective that they've always gone towards.
Yeah, I don't think a collective will be a good idea. Again, I'm not bears enough. Well, because the collective have been manipulated for many years, right? Like they've been indoctrinated. Yes. So that's just that. You cannot trust in a bunch of people that, like you said before, they're all biased into one direction because that's all they know.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I was in a room with Castro, and he was asked one question and then talked for 3 hours without taking a breath, which I guess he was famous for. It was rather somewhat abusive. But in that time, he announced to our group that he had discovered that Huntington's disease was an autosomal dominant disorder. That was his discovery. And he invented the curveball because he was a great baseball player. And he just went on and on and on about nonsense. I mean, I was thinking, oh my God, this guy is in a manic psychotic state. This is who he is. Wow.
Yeah, imagine 20 years of seeing that every day in my life. That's what I saw every day.
Well, I am delighted you are here and you are successful and you are thriving and you are feeding people. It seems like you're feeding joy. Tell me more about what you want people to know about you.
Well, I've been baking since I was very young. I was 9 when I started baking back in Cuba, and I had an illegal bakery. I had to like go around in a bicycle with a bag of flour on the back through the city, hiding from police that was on every corner. So I've been doing this for a very long time. I love giving people the experience of sharing something. My business is called Feelings and Emotions, which is a play on words for feelings and emotions, because I think that food does that. I think that food, takes you places, reminds you of people. It has this power to transport and your mind into, a memory. And that's what I like to do with the food that I serve. And I've been lucky to be able to do it here. And to be embraced by the people of Utah and allow me to have a successful business for the last 13 years. I cannot be more grateful for the opportunities that I was given when I came to this country and that allowed me to be where I am today. I mean, I would have never thought that I would be talking to somebody like you on a podcast in America 25 years ago in Cuba.
I'm not quite sure what you mean by somebody like me, but I'll accept that as a compliment.
It is a compliment.
Well, Chef Al, listen, we'd love to keep track of you and support you and however we can. Where do you want people to find you?
You can go to feelingsandemotions.com. You can go to Instagram at feelings.and.emotions to see everything that we're doing constantly. You'll see me there all the time. You can find me on Instagram at chef.adalberto.diaz. And then, follow my story and our foods and maybe you want to come over. If you ever come to Salt Lake and you don't get the chance to get out of the airport, we have a location at the airport so you can get our stuff in there. Oh. So there's
fantastic. I'll do both. I love that town. I was there about a year ago, I guess. And had I known of your wares, I would have been right there. So thank you, Chef Al. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you. And come by the bakery when you come to Salt Lake.
Guarantee you I will. So it is Fillings and Emulsions, EMULSIONS. It's both fillings and emulsions are plural. Thank you, Chef Al.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Cheers. All right, coming up next, Walter Kirn, novelist, essayist, editor-at-large at County Highway, author of many books and a movie, and we'll be talking with him about a variety of topics right after this. I've spent most of my career dealing with illnesses that shorten life, and now we have ways to extend it and extend wellness. I've been working with the team over at V-Shred to develop a product that has everything I want in a longevity supplement. NR Boost has nicotinamide riboside. You know how metal can rust? Well, your body behaves in a similar way. It's mediated through something called NAD. NAD falls as we age, So we're less able to fight off that oxidative process. We oxidize much like that metal. And NAD fights it, but nicotinamide riboside elevates NAD so we can push back on those oxidative stressors, improving health, improving longevity. The other product is Senosync, has fisetin, one of the key molecules to fight off zombie cells, and we've added resveratrol to that, which is a well-known anti-aging antioxidant again. I don't like supplements that have a ton of ingredients. To me, it suggests that none of it's working. When I prescribe a medication, I prescribe that medicine because I expect that to work. That is exactly what I've done with these products. And I want you to go to drdrew.com/vshredmd for 10% off. Again, that is drdrew.com/vshredmd. What's going on with your retirement savings? This should concern all of us. Inflation is not some abstract notion. It quietly erodes purchasing power over time.
Central banks have been buying more gold for the last 4 years than they have in the history. And there's a reason for that. We have a love affair with the dollar and with paper currencies, and most people are just in paper. We're attached, and you know how relationships are. What do you say to a patient when they're locked in a relationship with someone who's obviously doesn't have their best interests at heart, but they stay with it?
Denial. And that's why we suggest Augusta Precious Metals. Their entire approach is very different. There's no pressure. They just give you education and information. Augusta explains how gold or silver IRAs work and how physical metals could fit into your retirement account without tax consequences. And they've operated for over a decade with thousands of clients. They put together a free guide that walks you through everything. It's available now at drdrew.com/gold. You'll get the same educational materials that Augusta gave to Susan and myself. So if inflation worries you, Augusta is a great place to start. Go to drdrew.com/gold. That is drdrew.com/GOLD, or just text the word Drew to the number 35052. That's 35052 to get that free guide now.
Dr. Drew said the best way to quit drinking is by going cold turkey, and he's a doctor, so why would you question doctors?
Dr. Drew called me unfixable.
Walter Kirn can be followed on X, Walter Kirn, Kirn. Let's see, there's also on X, County Highway with the highway abbreviated to HWI, walterkirn.substack.com. A series of books, maybe Caleb will be throwing them up there throughout the show. It seems like the latest was There's a Bear in the House, and he's here to talk about that and his upcoming film. Walter, welcome.
Great to be here. I decided to wear a striped shirt because I'm in California, and I'm feeling very light, happy, and sunny today. And I want you to know that I've been to Chef Al's restaurant. I just realized it as I was watching the segment.
Wow.
I go to Salt Lake City. I'm a Westerner. I'm going between Montana, Las Vegas, and Los Angeles all the time. I go to Salt Lake City, and I have seen those pastries, and I've put them in my mouth, and they're everything he said they were.
Hey, good. His story is so compelling. We just need to support that guy. But the last time I saw you was in San Francisco. We were at a fundraiser, and it was me and Greg Gutfeld, and we were ironically going to visit Scott Adams. That's what we were doing. We ended up doing a podcast with him, and you actually spoke at Scott's funeral, which I appreciated. And you were on the Scott Adams School this morning, which was a twofer for me. You said it's a twofer for you. It's a twofer for me. And I was thinking while I was listening, there's so many things I want to talk to you about. Why don't we first start with the movie? And then we'll talk a little UFO talk, because Caleb saw some things you had said about UFO. And so that is our blast is all about the UFOs, so I don't want to miss that. But I am so fascinated by this movie and the response to the movie. That is the bizarre part of the story, but go ahead.
Well, so the movie has yet to be made. It has yet to be fully financed. And all of the billionaires and multimillionaires in your audience who've dreamed of becoming movie producers and, spinning that wheel of fortune can get in touch with me if they want to invest in it. The problem with the movie is this. I was asked back before Trump was elected, 2024, to try to write a movie a satirical movie in the vein of Dr. Strangelove or something like that, that captured our experience during COVID. Not a documentary, but a fictional movie that would somehow get at the essence of what we went through. And so I made up a disease because I couldn't talk about the one that we all experienced personally. And it was a rash. It was a skin disorder that would cause people to scratch themselves, but then it would cause them to wonder if they weren't causing the rash by scratching themselves. And I thought that was kind of the essence of COVID. We never knew whether it was as bad as we believed or we were making it worse through our fear and our panic. And it was really a movie about panic. And I was asked to interview a certain scientist as part of my research for the film, Dr. J. Bhattacharya at Stanford University. Now, little did I know when I interviewed him that he would become the head of the National Institute of Health after Trump's election. He's now head of the CDC as well. I didn't know that when I talked to him. When I heard his story, and I heard the story of a lonely professor on the Stanford campus who basically did a study of COVID by himself early in the pandemic and concluded two things: that it was wider spread than we realized. More people had been exposed to it than we knew. And therefore, it was less deadly than we believed because we were undercounting the number of people who'd had it, basically.
Yeah.
He faced so many hate campaigns on social media from his own colleagues, from business people. He showed me letters threatening him from major corporate heads. And I thought, well, I've got to take this guy's experience to heart. And my hero in this movie has to experience some of the same things he did. Anyway, I wrote the film. I wrote the script. And, the script includes all sorts of parallels to COVID, but which I invented. For example, in the movie, there's a drug that's used to treat people who have the rash, but it's a drug that was developed for other reasons, and it didn't work in its original form because all it does is make people lazy. But it works for the rash because people become so lazy when they take this drug, they don't even itch themselves. They can't bother. And so it's that kind of movie. Yeah, it's that kind of movie. It's a comedy. It's a satire. It's about how mass hysteria is engineered and how it kind of works for different parties and how people get invested in it and start pushing it despite true medical concerns. And anyway, I went and spoke in Washington, D.C. at an event, just a month and a half ago or so, a MAHA event, a Make America Healthy event. And I showed this little trailer that you're showing stills from. Now, this trailer isn't the movie itself. We made this to sell the movie. And within a few days, I started being attacked in the press as a writer, not just as a writer, but as a human being, because how dare I try to write a strange, funny, satirical movie based on the sacred COVID experience, which I didn't realize we were all supposed to be reverent about for the rest of our lives. We weren't supposed to make fun of the fact that kids had played clarinets in plastic tents. We weren't supposed to make fun of the fact that people had been asked to stand 6 feet away and walk in one direction through the supermarket. We weren't supposed to make fun of the fact that you could pull your mask down to say, what you needed to say and then put it back up. And it would be the same to the people as long as you put it back up. There was a Hollywood Reporter story. There was a Politico story, not by their entertainment reporter, but by their health reporter. And it came like an onslaught, like a landslide. And I said, boy, this is a movie they don't want made. And why is that? And I concluded, because if you laugh at an experience like COVID, which I will assert was an experience that was foisted on us in many ways. It was pushed, by corporate, institutional, and governmental forces. Then you can't fall for it again. What I was doing was providing a vaccine, a mental and intellectual an emotional vaccine against us being panicked in this way again. And they don't want that to happen. And I didn't realize how passionately they don't want that to happen.
Well, that lets you know you are over the target. The flak intensifies when you're right over the target, and so you are there.
It also makes you realize, Drew, that the planes are over you, that the bombers are directly over your head, and they're dropping all around you. And as an artist, that's unfamiliar.
Well, as a physician, it's unfamiliar too. That was why I started this little streaming show. I saw them canceling people like Jay Bhattacharya and went, that guy's a brilliant epidemiologist. He must have something to say. I want to talk to him. Let me talk to him. And then I heard his story. I was like, oh my God, this is a psyop. Something's wrong here. This is really bad. And that was where the beginning of my white pilling or blue pilling or whatever the hell pill I'm taking now. Michael Malice told me I'm taking you told me I'm taking a red pill with a black flag. Okay, Michael, that's what it is. So, but
they used to have a drug back called. Oh no! I was going to say they used to have a drug called Dexamil, and half of it was a stimulant, and half of it was a sedative. And I always thought, why don't you just go through life normally instead of taking two drugs that cancel each other out? And so I don't know what pill I'm on either.
There was a famous book about all that called Uppers, Downers, and All-Arounders that we used to discuss back in the early days of addiction medicine. But so there are two topics, though, I want to address before we get into any UFO talk. I'm going to try to get to it eventually. I know people are wanting that material. But the inoculation, and you talked this morning on Scott Adams' show about how films inoculate us in order to prepare us for them to dismiss the things that they're putting in the films when they do them in real life. Exactly. You watch too many movies. You watch that on TV. But hang on. The other thing is, and I want to talk in more detail about it, if you don't mind. You can address the inoculation thing, but panic, mass panic, and mass formation, and true believers, and whether you go from the French Revolution or the Russian Revolution or the Tulip Mania, it's all the same mass behavior. So after you talk about inoculation, you must have been thinking about panic quite a bit writing this film. So I'd love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, the movie's about panic. And, there have been great movies in the history of American cinema about this subject. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, a science fiction movie in which a normal person starts to look around at their neighbors and say, they're not human anymore, and starts to feel alone. The American literary tradition is usually about the individual against the crowd. It just is. High Noon with Gary Cooper, where the whole town deserts him and he has to face the criminals alone. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where the guy realizes it's just me. Everybody else is turning to a plant, turning into a pod. And so I think the individual was defeated in COVID. We were told that it was selfish to be concerned about our health. We were only supposed to be concerned about everyone else's, which was a weird inversion of medicine where you weren't even supposed to examine whether the vaccine was right for you or wrong for you, or whether, any of the treatments or protocols were right for you or wrong for you. You were constantly being shamed as an individual. And to me, sorry, that's anti-American. That, every hero that I had ever been taught to admire was somebody who stood against the mob to tell the truth. And in Dr. Bhattacharya and the character I created out of my research talking to him, that is again the truth. It's, panic is interesting. We always are susceptible to it, especially when we don't think we are. I mean, I've seen people since COVID who think they had COVID all figured out from the beginning. They resisted the hysteria, but they fall for other kinds of panic. We overestimate our ability to resist the passions of the crowd. And that's why these movies and stories have to keep being made and have to keep being told, because like addiction, it comes back if you're not actively treating it.
Yeah.
The susceptibility to panic comes back.
Well, for me, the panic. So it all started with panic. I remember during the early days of the epidemic, I got angry because I thought it was the press fomenting panic to capture eyeballs. I thought, they're doing this to get, it's for their business model because they're failing and everything's falling apart. So they're going to do this. And much like I was thinking of the series Pluribus too, is sort of about this. If you've seen that on Apple TV, it's very good.
Right.
But it went from panic to more of a kind of movement, where
you're right.
People who were so concerned with the collective that they were turning in their neighbors for having barbecues, or they were, yelling at people in the street if they walked by them without a mask. And those people who were so caring and so concerned about the collective that they were doing that would have been the prison guards in 1935. 100% probability. You would not be standing up to the Nazis. You would be the effing prison guards. And that inversion is what people can't understand. And that's the part that we got, why we have to keep talking about this as much as anything else, or it will happen again.
So panic is the explosion of energy. But what happens next is the channeling of that energy, the directing of that energy towards certain ends. And so once it had been released, once the fast twitch nerves had done their thing, then we were slowly guided through lectures on virtue and flattery of our social and civic conscience into doing things that were abominable. Remember the story about Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, my former state, a man who I can't criticize enough for various reasons, sending the police to fire paintball guns at people who were sitting on their porch during the pandemic. How dare they sit on their porch? There were times when it looked like the pandemic was really the war on human joy. I mean, who wanted to get better and live in the world that they were creating for us? It was almost like they were trying to induce despair.
Yeah, and they did. And Corolla always points out that the women got indoctrinated around saving the kids, helping the kids, worrying about the kids. And they ended up in that panic, giving the kids an experimental product they didn't need. And now, I don't know if you saw this article, came out, I think yesterday. It shows, guess what? No myocarditis in COVID cases in young male adults. Significant percentage of myocarditis in the vaccine recipients. Shocking. Zero risk of the COVID, non-zero risk of the vaccine. We should not be giving that vaccine. But as you pointed out, the inversion of all our basic ethics, in medicine, as a country, as a republic, that inversion is the foundation of public health thinking. Public health does not consider itself taking into the things into consideration I take into. And as such, I think public health is a scourge. It's a problem. It has to be reeled in, because there is just what's good for the group. Mine is what is good for the patient sitting in front of me. What is the risk-reward analysis? It's a much more nuanced thing, and that's always better than, we just got to do this for the group. That ends up in disaster.
Usually, when they want to convince you to do something that goes against your usual morals or even your instincts, imagine saying, I'm going to take my little child. And I don't have to imagine it. Many people did it. And I feel bad for the fact that many people regret it. And I feel good for those who have no reason to regret it. But imagine taking your little child and having something put into their bloodstream whose nature, whose makeup you knew nothing about, and which you had only learned about from news shows that were sponsored by the company that produced the thing, where the logo was up in the corner of the screen telling you, a logical human being, that the same people who were giving the message were being paid by that company. And yet you did it anyway. Well, they can only get you to do that if they convince you that something is basically true that isn't true. And public health doesn't exist. You're right. The public doesn't have health. The public doesn't have a bloodstream. The public doesn't have organs. It doesn't have a heartbeat.
That's right.
But when they convince you that it is a person, that it's the equivalent of a person, then they can start getting you to do things that you wouldn't otherwise.
Literally. All right, I could talk to you all day. We have to time up. We can get on Gutfeld at the same shows. We're there at the same time. We got to figure that out.
Okay, man. Greg is the mortar between our two bricks, Drew. I mean, he keeps us together.
It seems to be happening that way. But we got to get into this UFO category and the missing Air Force general. Do you know this story?
I sure as heck do. Now, this is not just missing. It's not just a missing Air Force general. It is the general who is in charge of Air Force advanced research. So if you believe or don't believe that we have projects of extreme sensitivity, extreme scientific complexity, that may have something to do, some people believe, with recovered craft or knowledge that we gained, from contact with other intelligences. But whether we did or not, this man disappeared without a trace while going on a hike in New Mexico, without a trace. What's also true is that not long before, in 2025, a woman who basically, in a sense, worked for him. She worked for NASA and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in advanced materials for rockets, very advanced materials. She basically created metals that can withstand the heat of rocket engines, which had not been a problem we were able to solve until then. She had disappeared while on a hike outside of Los Angeles. Disappeared so completely that people who had turned to see her minutes before saw her 30 feet behind them, and then when they turned around, couldn't see her anymore. And months were spent searching for her. These people were linked. We also have, if you can remember, in the onslaught of new crisis news, in December, an MIT fusion scientist, a plasma scientist, if you know what that means in physics, who was shot on his front porch in his house near Boston. These are three major scientists in the most advanced realms of space, rocket propulsion, and Air Force, NASA type endeavors, who are either dead in a mysterious fashion, because the killer of the MIT scientist then killed himself near a storage unit after he had also killed people in Brown, at Brown University. What's going on here? What is going on seems to be an enemy action, perhaps, against our most valuable, secretive, and let's say easily weaponized technologies. And what does this have to do with UFOs? Well, it has everything to do with them, because the two subjects of crafts we see in the sky and technologies we don't understand come together in a mystery. Whether that mystery is government secrecy about itself or government secrecy about the universe, we're not in a position to judge yet, because there's such a veil over it all. But we're seeing very bad things happen in front of the curtain that should cause us to be very, very worried about what's going on behind it.
They were talking about AI. That at one point they wanted to suppress the math around AI. And that's how the things, when they get really advanced, the government just comes in and takes it away. Apparently the physics around bombs were taken away. I mean, all these things just cease to exist. And if they're taught, somebody visits them or maybe does something like this. So do we expect that this is some sort of, is China absconded with them and now, picking their brains constantly for details? Or what do you think this is? Do you have any idea?
Well, because I'm a novelist, I have an overactive imagination, which I think is an asset in a world like we live in nowadays. And people say, oh, conspiracy theories and so on. And I just say, those aren't conspiracy theories. Those are just plots. And one must consider all of them in light of our paucity of information. Yes, it's possible that these people have been kidnapped, that they've been abducted. It's also, I suppose, possible that they're in some kind of hyper-protective custody. But I'd like to think that we already protect our most sensitive scientists, that we don't have to disappear them in order to do that.
The story I always like is the Bob, what's his name? The guy that was taken off the streets of Las Vegas, the sort of quasi-physicist to go study this ship that they had and this special cesium anti-gravity thing. Bob Lazar. And I thought, to me, that is the Army studying how other countries might attempt to deconstruct our technology. Because they took sort of an average physicist and gave him an impossible technology to deconstruct, and they watched him try to deconstruct it, as opposed to believing that the most important finding in the history of physics is underway, and we're going to hand it over to Bob Lazar. I mean, that's the unbelievable part. That's the part that makes no sense whatsoever.
Ever since the Manhattan Project gave us the bomb, and remember, other countries, Germany, and even others, were also working on bombs. We only won that competition by probably a matter of months, maybe.
I hear that,
maybe a little longer than that. That taught us a lesson, which is that secrecy and confusion are of the essence if we're to make the technological advances that keep us ahead. So a lot of this topic is filled, like you say, with propaganda, confusion, misdirection, and we can't get to the bottom of it. But how can we not be fascinated with it?
Yes. Well, and to that point, one last thing to satisfy the UFO crowd. I've got too many other things to worry about. That. And by the way, my own feeling is that aliens are probably here, but they're viruses and bacteria. We want them to be humanoid, and I'm afraid that's highly unlikely. But
has anybody ever seen a rhinoceros? If a rhinoceros can exist, why can't something that looks like a small human being with no ears?
Yeah, I mean, they could be. I'm for sure convinced that microbes come on asteroids and things for sure. And those are alien. But in any event, you said something this morning about interviewing somebody that informed you that they frequently see things coming and going just above the atmosphere. Can you tell me about that?
Well, I've spoken to all kinds of experts and whistleblowers and people who've been involved in the military and intelligence. And one of them who had a role in satellite intelligence told me one time off the cuff, oh yeah, we see them come and go all the time. And I was them, and he said, yeah, craft, objects coming into the outer atmosphere from space and leaving it again, particularly around times of war and back when during nuclear tests and rocket launches, especially now. When Elon Musk shoots a rocket off for SpaceX, it is alleged to me that there is interest from these objects, and that it can be picked up on instruments. Now, that sounds wild, but I'm not a journalist because I want to tell you things you already know. I'm a journalist because I want you to tell you things that you don't know yet. And I've tested these sources. I'm not a complete dummy, and I can't, of course, see the tapes of those events, but I can tell you that in the aggregate, I think there's something here.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable position. Tell me about, we're going to wrap this thing up. Tell me about County Highway and where you want people to go, what book they should buy.
Yeah.
Give me a pitch.
Yeah. Okay. I'm on X. It's my name. You can find me easily there, and you can find out everything about me from that portal. I also am the editor-at-large of County Highway magazine, which is it comes in the form of a newspaper. It comes out 6 times a year. I promise you that that's enough because it will take you 2 months to read. There's so much in it. And it's the story of places that don't get covered in the mainstream media. And it's the story of people who aren't paid attention to. But it is a fascinating, high quality literary venture that I wish everyone would subscribe to. It exists only as a physical newspaper. You can get it online, but you can't read it online. And that's one of my novels and one of my books right there.
One that became a famous movie. And then I implore you or somebody you know to walk that script over to Mel Brooks' house and see if we can get this thing underway. It needs to be done. So,
yeah, well,
and I look forward to...
Mel Brooks helped so many artists through the years. Maybe he'll help me.
That's what I'm saying. This would be a wonderful feather in the final, maybe even final feather in his cap. He's very advanced in his years here. All right, Walter, we'll see you soon. I look forward to seeing you in person. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers. All right, we are going to take a little break, and when we come back, we are going to talk to Dr. SueLyn Hall. She is a urologist. Her book is How to Get Ahead, and we'll put the book up there for you. I don't have SueLyn's. Caleb, maybe you can find out from me if there's any. Well, she'll tell us if there's any links we should send people to. But she's a surgeon. She's an expert. And I really think I'm just always delighted when the urologists are taking the lead on these topics. Back with that after this. More of our audience is taking health and wellness into their own hands, and they're doing it with The Wellness Company. For a discount on the best-selling products and everything on their website, for that matter, go to drdrew.com/TWC. The medical emergency kits are among the most popular items. There are 8 different kits, each depending on your individual needs. Inside, you'll find antibiotics, antivirals, antiparasitics, first aid, anti-nauseal, skin treatments, and a kids kit with EpiPen and one for travel. The advantage to having an emergency kit in the house is immediacy. You don't have to run to the urgent care and spend a ton of money for all that infrastructure or wait for the pharmacy to open or try to find a doctor. And then there's Ultimate Spike Detox Supplement with nattokinase, turmeric, and bromelain. It has helped the vaccine injured. And anyone who is concerned about cardiovascular issues caused by lingering spike from the virus or the shots, the Ultimate Spike Detox is for you. One of TWC's top sellers is a topical ivermectin cream. It treats inflammation of the skin, issues like rosacea. The Wellness Company is always innovating. So go to drdrew.com/TWC to see what they have to offer and get a 10% discount there. Hey, Dr. Drew here, and we are interested in health and longevity, and the longevity nutrient is Fatty 15, discovered amazingly by a veterinarian who was responsible for the Navy's fleet of dolphins. Turns out dolphins are healthier when they have adequate amounts of pentadecanoic acid, which is C15. It also, for us, it helps humans as well, reduces the oxidative stress on our cell membranes, which is part of the aging process, called ferroptosis. So she takes it, I take it, whole family takes it. And if you'd like some, go to drdrew.com/fatty15 for yours. There are discounts there.
Oh my God, look, Drew, it's a dolphin. Oh my gosh.
Hey, Dr. Drew here, and even when we travel, we bring the new convenient fatty gummies. They're delicious, and they are portable, and they're great. And remember, this is a longevity ingredient. It fights against the oxidative stress on our cell membranes. We call that process ferroptosis, discovered in dolphin research by Dr. Van Watson. And I'm taking this every day, even when I travel. It's Fatty 15. Something our audience knows well is that what's good for our health can also be good for the environment. Paleo Valley makes snacks, drinks, oils, and more that are nutrient-dense, delicious, and impeccably sourced. Co-founder Autumn Smith champions regenerative farming. It's a level beyond organic.
When you go to the grocery store, 90% of the animal products you're going to buy are from factory farms. And we obviously know factory farms work against nature. They work against animal health and in many ways against human health. Regenerative farms work on taking the landscape or the ecosystem from a degraded state, which the environment right now needs a lot of rehabilitation, and we have lower nutrient levels in our soil than ever before. We found that animal products from regenerative systems have nutritional benefits above and beyond other types of animal products.
Paleo Valley's beef sticks and bone broth protein powder are my favorites, and they come from regenerative farms. And the sticks also come in pasture-raised chicken as well.
We actually just went and visited one of our chicken farmers, and we work with a lot of co-ops and people all over the country.
We are such fans of Autumn, her work, and her extraordinary small business. Go to drdrew.com/Paleo Valley for a 15% discount on your first order, or get 20% off when you subscribe. Dr. SueLyn Hall is a board-certified urologist. The Instagram is How to Get Ahead book, and the book is How to Get Ahead. Dr. Hall, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So tell us about the book, where they can follow you, what they can expect to learn from it.
So, How to Get Ahead is basically getting ahead in life in regards to your mental, physical health. I wanted to write this book to increase competence and confidence in intimate relationships by educating people about their anatomy, their physiology, for both men and women, because sexual health and intimacy can actually affect mental and physical well-being.
Oh my God, for sure. I was just reading the other day that just touch, particularly for men, touch lowers their cortisol level by 30% or something. And there's a lot of longevity data out that if you're, now, of course, we don't know chicken or egg. Is there people able to have sex because they're healthy, or are they having sex that's keeping them healthy? Probably both, right?
Both, yes. Regular pleasure really does reduce stress. It actually reduces the stress hormone cortisol that mitigates the harmful effect of stress on our heart, our immune system, and our overall health. So intimacy, which I like to describe as in-to-me-see, you have to start from within, enhance your normal, healthy life to be able to share it with someone else.
Yes, that intimacy is a very important moniker to people to kind of understand what intimacy is. And is urology is becoming, with, like every discipline in medicine, everything's becoming very, very more narrower and narrower. What is sort of your area of urology?
So I practice general urology. So in regards to the male, female, and pediatric urology, but now I've advanced to doing Quantum Health and Wellness Center, where I actually see patients in a holistic manner as well for basically preventing diseases and not just waiting till someone develops the disease. We actually try to do a mind, body, soul approach to healthy living.
Oh, interesting. And, there are certainly a lot of people are taking advantage these days of what we call the PDE5 inhibitors, the medications for erectile dysfunction. But there's a lot of other non-pharmaceutical things to be done out there, both preventive and like sound waves and whatnot, to sort of help in ways that don't require pharmaceuticals.
Yes, so many men don't realize that erectile dysfunction actually can be one of the first signs of cardiovascular disease and diabetes. Sometimes men don't realize if they're starting to have ED, it may be an early sign for more important disease process that's developing. And so sexual health, even though we figure it as improving, yes, intimacy, but it's also to protect our heart, bone health, as well as our brain to improve functionality. So when someone has vascular disease, the penis has smaller vessels than the vessels in the heart. So when you start having obstruction of the vessels in the penis, that may lead to more advanced diseases actually being developed. I had a 30-year-old patient when Viagra just came out that actually wanted me to give him Viagra, and I was like, no, we really need to check your heart. You have a strong family history of heart disease. And I am so glad I referred him, because he had 90% occlusion of his LAD and wouldn't have known that if I had just given him medication. So listening and figuring out what patients have, I know, really is important.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, a man 50 and over, 40 and over, if they smoke, if they got erectile dysfunction, I put them on a treadmill right away. First, before we do anything else, let's see if there's anything going on here. And very many other variations on that theme. You have calcium scans and CT angiograms, all kinds of things now you can do. So many ways your doctor can evaluate that. But
artery calcium scan is, I agree with you, is a great way to evaluate people early, as well as apolipoprotein B and all the other markers, CRP, homocysteine, really good markers in evaluating heart disease early.
you give homocysteine. I know you're doing more wellness now, and homocysteine is a topic that comes and goes, and I get confused about it. Are you worried about homocysteine elevations, and do you do something to bring them down?
Yes, if someone's elevated and has high risk factors for DNA abnormalities or some kind of epigenetic problem that may be at risk, I oftentimes recommend magnesium, which actually binds to NMDA receptors and inhibits calcium sodium ion chains develop into the cell, therefore reducing oxidative stress and mitochondrial function, improving health. So even though when I give someone magnesium, they may think it's just for relaxing their bladder so they don't get up as much at night to urinate, or relaxing their muscles so they feel better, it's actually also to help with methylation, which also requires like fish oils, omega-3s, help to convert, which you just talked about in your advertisement about nicotinamide riboside, and to convert that in the body to NAD really can help reduce oxidative stress, but also improves our health in general.
Yeah, I am completely convinced that those NAD pathways are the answer to so many of the, let's just say, the progression of aging and some of the things that people get into. I mean, it's, and exactly, somebody convinced me that the one thing I was leaving out was glutathione. And of course, you can't really get glutathione without, so it becomes glycine and acetylcysteine that you got to put together. Because that's the one I've always left out of my assault on NAD. I think PQQ is important. I think resveratrol is important. I think NR and NMN. These are all really interesting ways to do this, and even astaxanthin. But I just left glutathione alone because I thought it's not going to get where it's supposed to go. But I was convinced by a biologist recently that taking glycine and NAC will get it where it needs to go.
Yes. Well, if you have the precursors, including your methylating, so you're actually reducing your homocysteine, you're actually converting it to glutathione, which requires all these B vitamins. Those are very essential in being able to make glutathione yourself. If you're not, then liposomal glutathione is probably the best oral availability. Now, that used to be mainly just liquid, and now recently they came out with pill form. But I think glutathione is helping reducing breast cancers, all kinds of cellular, abnormalities that can develop within a lot of us. And many people don't even realize that they can actually reduce risk for cancers with these kinds of precursors if they're deficient, especially such things as methylation, which includes magnesium, fish oils, vitamin D, and building up our immune system. I think that many people don't realize we're so comfortable with normalizing mediocrity that we're not realizing optimizing our overall health is actually what's most important. But I agree that diet, exercise,
yes, of course,
reducing stress, all of those things matters, and layering it with the supplements is why I try to explain in my book how to get ahead.
And so the erectile function for me was just a way of backing into, my wife said, talk about fatty 15. She brought it up herself, Susan. She brought up fatty acid metabolism and the fact that what we're talking about in that ad is a saturated odd chain fatty acid. That's a novel odd chain fatty acid that has benefits on cell membrane oxidation. So that's a very unique, specific finding that came out of dolphin research. Thus, the dolphins in all of our ads. And Susan, the ad that's on Instagram now. Your husband?
I love that ad. You guys look great. And my husband started taking Fatty 15 as well. Yes.
Good.
We actually try to practice
put a new one up on it.
Yeah.
It means we only get behind the stuff before we start preaching. If we're into it, we like it, we're sold on. We are convinced of the science or the nutritional benefits. We do it. But she put up one on Instagram just now that Caleb and I couldn't stop laughing about. So stay tuned for that one. So I wanted to go from erectile function to prostate cancer because prostate cancer is an important topic. It's a leading killer of men in this country. It's not discussed enough. It is so treatable. It is so manageable if you get it right. And we're even zeroing. I work with the Prostate Cancer Foundation, and I listened to a lecture this morning about tumor markers that are going to be, we're going to be able to dial in exactly who needs a biopsy, exactly who can tolerate active surveillance, exactly who's likely to go on to more aggressive disease with these scores that we're developing. But our problem is actually more, I use the word gross because it's big. The big problem we have is men don't get tested. And it is I'm a prostate cancer patient. I had a prostatectomy 14 years ago. No effect on anything really. Certainly less than aging itself, I would say, effect on my biology. And I had to have radiation 10 years later, which is kind of interesting. I had some sort of recurrence. And I had a Gleason 6, which is it's all kind of weird, but it shows how challenging prostate cancer is and how each tumor is different in every patient and has to be highly individuated. But men aren't getting screened, so they're getting picked up too late. And Black men in particular, it's just tragic. They tend to have more aggressive disease. And if they're going to have more aggressive disease, we got to get on it fast. And if you aren't being screened, we're there too late. Tell me your thoughts.
That's actually the problem, because I think that Black men have the highest incidence of prostate cancer, and they actually have 2 times the incidence of dying from prostate cancer. And we're so good as urologists at treating prostate cancer, this should never happen. I mean, if caught early, what a difference in management. We check PSAs, but the problem is women go to the doctor all the time for PAPs, but men are not usually going to see us unless they have a symptom. The problem is the symptoms don't occur until you have advanced disease. So men need to be educated, especially Black men. They should be evaluated at age 40 with a PSA, especially because of high risk family history, so forth. Even though the Caucasian incidence is 1 to 8 versus 1 to 5 in Black men, 160,000 Black men per 100,000 is actually a very high number that we should be really addressing this issue to educate African American men more about this, because socioeconomic issues is one of the issues. Men are sometimes afraid of obtaining a digital rectal exam, but now we're really doing more PSAs as well as MRIs for further evaluation of prostate cancer, rather than just a finger exam, which there's, I think, one of the reasons they don't want to be evaluated.
Well, that's correct. And so no more digital rectal exams, gentlemen, so you don't have to worry about this. We didn't like it either. You don't have to do that anymore. It's just a blood test, as we've been saying at the PCF. And the thing that as you said, we don't go to the doctor. And even when we have a symptom, we go, I'll wait till it kills me, especially if it's going to do something to my penis or my sexual functioning. I don't want to know it. So we put our heads in the sand. What I want to emphasize is, if you get this early, it's fine. It's not going to affect any of that. It's not going to affect, it's just going to take a cancer away that really can kill you sometimes. And really, if you completely ignore it frequently, even though it's slow growing in most cases. It's just a tragedy to me. And in my experience, when I talk to African-American men, I still don't get anywhere. I only get when I talk to their daughters, sisters, and mothers and grandmothers. Then I can get them into the doctor's office, especially the grandmothers. But I can't go direct. So we need help. We need help. All throughout the family's got to help us get these men in.
And one of the reasons I wrote this book about how to get ahead was to get ahead of these diseases. I educate people about the erectile dysfunction, but then also, what is the anatomy? What is going on? We as women will go to the doctors. We need to encourage our husbands or brothers or sons or fathers to be evaluated, because this is, on poor symptoms, not very extensive symptoms. And most diseases for men are underreported. Just for instance, low testosterone. Many men have fatigue, weight gain, sleepless nights. They sometimes even present with depression, but not like how women present with crying or talking to your friend. They may have anger or overworking. But these may be signs of another disease process undergoing low testosterone. But people were worried about taking testosterone with history of prostate cancer. But as urologists, we're able to evaluate that and recommend who is an appropriate candidate for management versus who's not.
Yeah, like I would absolutely be on testosterone replacement if I hadn't had prostate cancer.
Right.
And then even after cancer, if I hadn't had a recurrence. It's the recurrence that puts me in that category that kind of like, sorry, not for you.
Right.
But there are plenty of ways to naturally raise your testosterone level. Right.
There are
Plenty of
natural
ways
ways,
with,
yes.
don't overdo. Yeah, don't sleep
Diet.
adequately, resistance
Yes.
training,
Resistance
diet,
training.
don't do the excessive cardio. Excessive cardio drives it down. Have
Yes.
adequate sexual experiences, frequency, that raises testosterone. Yes. Well, listen,
Healthy
Dr.
sexual
Hall, we've got to
pleasure.
wrap this up.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Well, get her book. It's a good book. It's comprehensive. It is about leading your health. How do you take a topic like that and think about health? It's a way to get into the topic of being healthy and being happy ultimately. So, Dr. Hall, I appreciate you writing the book. Where do you want people to find you?
They can find me on Instagram, SueLyn Hall, or How to Get Ahead book. Also at Quantum Health and Wellness Center, we can also be found on X at SueLyn Hall, HTGA, _MD, or at anywhere on Instagram or Facebook for Quantum Health and Wellness Center, as well as SueLyn Hall, MD. And thanks so much for having
Great.
me. I
Thanks for
really
joining
wanted
us.
people to know,
You bet.
about the book and their health. Thank you.
Great. I think we raised the awareness, and I hope they'll come look, at least get on that Instagram or the Facebook. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Coming up, this was a good week. Lots of really interesting people I had the privilege to talk to, and I appreciate you guys. Let me look at what's going on the chats very quickly. That's what's coming up. Read for yourself. There's a lot there. I'm looking at the Rumble rants. I don't have anybody here with me today. Hold on. You guys have any questions on the rants? I don't really see anything. A lot of commentary there. Oh, goodness. Okay. Nothing specific. And then on the chat, the restream, I'm looking quick back what you were. Push me, pull you was alien. Okay. There's not. Sorry. Let me look at your questions here. If there's anything. I appreciate your activity on these chats, though. Let me tell you something. It's really the interaction between and amongst you that I'm fascinated by. So we appreciate you being here, and there's very kind comments in there as well. We appreciate it. Oh, they lost sound for a minute, I guess, Caleb. I think that was we were getting a little glitchy for a second there.
I think they're trolling me. They do that every once in a while, and two people will say, "There's no audio. There's no audio." Now they scramble and make me run and check it, and then other people are saying, "Oh no, the audio's fine." They're just playing tricks on you, Caleb.
Well, Caleb has influenza B. Don't stress him out. He's got to get over this damn thing. Well, no doubt you'll have a chance to get over it across the weekend. So I look forward to you being better on Monday. Stay with your Tamiflu. It'll have some effect.
Yeah.
It doesn't work as well in B in my experience. It's remarkable in influenza A this year. But we have a lot of good stuff coming. Emily Barsh has been hard at work booking great guests, and we have some really interesting people that she and I have been talking about. Dr. Charlie Powell on the 24th, Stuart Brotman, Jay Dyer, and I think we have some things are going to be added to that list before we get around to Tuesday. So I'll see you at Tuesday at 2:00 right here. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. Emily Barsh is our content producer. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.